Welcome to Mystery of the Soul. I'm your co-host Erin, and I'm joined by my friend Leo, a psychic medium and Reiki master. Our podcast explores the depth of the soul, the spiritual, and the supernatural. Hi Leo, how are you?
I'm good. How you doing, Erin?
Good. We have a guest with us today. I'm really excited. Her
Yes.
name is Jennifer Luciana. So Jen and I, hi.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Jen and I know each other. I think, Jen, it's been, 8 years, 10 years that we met?
It's got to be something
like that.
Closer to 10.
Yeah. So Jen and I met through horses at a barn years ago, and we were acquaintances and then kept in touch, I think, through social. And about 5 or 6 years ago, I needed an animal communicator for my horse, and I called Jen. And her reading of T-Man was spectacularly on point. Just the messages that he had to say were so specific. And I want to give an example because it's a good tee up to the conversation I'm going to have today. There was a new cat at the barn, and you had noted that T-Man did not like that cat. And then there was a black horse that had just moved into the stall across from him. And you had also, with great specificity, been like, he's not so sure about that new black horse. You didn't even ask me if there was a new black horse. You were just like, there's a new black horse and he's 50-50 on it. So.
Thank you, Erin, for being so kind with your words. I know I've talked to you about this before, Leo. You and I haven't really talked too much about our mutual work, but
Right.
Don't usually remember sessions after I'm done with them. I don't know if it's the same for you, but usually about 5 to 10 minutes after each session, I tend not to remember anything because I just simply can't hold all of that information in my brain.
Yeah, I think it depends on how deep we go into that trance state for it.
Yeah.
Like you said, you sometimes remember bits and pieces or memorable moments you might remember, but not everything.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So Jen, with that intro, I know that you describe yourself as someone who reads energy. So I know that you do more than animal readings, but will you tell us a little bit about yourself? So the work that you do, how you got into the work, just a little bit about yourself as a person. We'd love to hear it.
Yeah. Well, thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk about what I do. I love what I do. I call myself an energy reader. When you say that to people, I've mentioned this before. When you say that you're an energy reader, people think you work for the local electric company, and they don't really get what that means. I don't work for Con Ed, but everything, I believe, everything in this world is about energy. Our existence is about energy. There's energy in the air around us, the air that we breathe, the vibe that we all carry in our souls as individuals. Animals have energy. Trees have energy. Everything. Our doorknobs have energy. Everything's about energy. And part of what I do is I connect with that energy, and I'm able to kind of filter out my own personal thoughts and my own personal opinions or perspectives and just read that energy that's coming in. So I talk to the dead. I talk to spirit guides that are here in the present, connected to an individual client. I speak to animals. I speak to animals that have passed. It's really all about energy for me. And it's the same kind of thing. I always use this example. When you go into a bar and you say, oh, it's got a weird vibe. What you're reading is the energy of the space. Everybody can connect with energy. Some of us can go a little deeper, like Leo had referred to earlier. Some of us go a little deeper, and I think it takes a little time because I wasn't always an energy reader. I wasn't always doing it professionally. It takes a little while to build confidence. I believe I've always had this gift, but for a very long time, I didn't know that it was an actual thing. I didn't know that it was an it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's a big it. So, Jen, our chat today is going to focus mostly on animal communication. I'm sure we can bring you back at another time and explore all of their kinds of energy readings. But for today, we're gonna stick to animals. So, Will you talk to us a little bit about how you experience animal communication? So, like we've talked on previous episodes of Mystery of the Soul about clairvoyance and clairaudience, but how do you personally experience animal communication?
It's very different depending on each individual. So, like you talked about clairaudience, clairvoyance, for those who don't know what that is. Clair attached to anything means clear. So, clairaudience means that you hear things clearly. Clairsentience is that you feel things in your body. So, people connect that to empathy or being an empath. You feel things in your body very clearly. And when it goes on, clairvoyance and claircognizance for me is very strong. I just know things and I don't know why. But when I'm working with animals, for example, I, for a while, was working as an equine and canine massage therapist. I got my certification, and I was working on horses at the barn where you and I met, Erin. And I didn't realize that I was having full-on conversations as I was working on the horses. I would start getting thoughts that weren't mine. And then I would just respond to those thoughts out loud. And people may have thought I was nuts. But then I would realize, like, wait a minute, I'd finish up the session, I'd get in the car and think, what just happened? Was there something else there? Like, what was I doing? So for me, when I communicate with animals, it's very different. Sometimes clairaudience comes through very clearly depending on the psychic ability or the level of psychic connection of the animal. Sometimes I'll see pictures in my mind's eye of what it is that they want me to communicate or what they want me to know. Sometimes I do get, for example, I was working on a horse. I didn't know anything about her. And as soon as I connected with her energy, I got this really bad stitch in my side, my stomach. It was awful. The owners of the horse had just said to me, see what's going on with her. They didn't tell me anything else. So as soon as I connected with her, I got this sharp pain. And she was telling me how stressed out she was and all this other kind of stuff. And then I realized when I told the owners later, I said, why was my stomach bothering me so much? They said, oh, she's got really bad ulcers.
Yeah, that's so for our listeners, that's actually not uncommon. Ulcers are a sign of stress in horses. So, yeah.
Be really uncomfortable.
A funny story about Jen feeling things during readings, and I hope you don't mind me. So when Jen was reading, so my horse's name is Traveler, but we affectionately call him T-Man. The first time you did a reading for him happened to be the first time he ever colicked. And it was very mild colic. So again, for our listeners who aren't familiar with colic is basically gastrointestinal distress in a horse. It can vary from very light, non-issue to very severe and fatal. It is perpetually what keeps horse people up at night. It's so difficult to diagnose and treat, and it really can vary in terms of just a non-issue to absolutely fatal and everything in between. As it turned out, T-Man is not a particularly colicky horse, and he had a very mild case of gas colic that could easily be resolved just by getting him out of his stall and walking him around. But Jen, when you were doing the reading, you were like, oh, I keep burping. Like I keep feeling like this.
I remember that now.
Yes.
Also, there was an issue with his tooth.
My God. So
Wasn't there an issue with his tooth?
This is an amazing story. I don't want to make this the T-Man show, but I'll tell this quickly. Yes, you had identified a pain in his mouth in the upper right side of his jaw, and it was in fact a bad tooth. I had to move him out of the barn he was in and get him into a new barn in order to get the right care done for it. And he did eventually get surgery on that tooth. A quick funny story. Yes. He can also talk to Abby. So for our listeners, Abby is my sister. She was on our first episode. Due to varying health challenges, she can't always join our podcast, but she too is a psychic medium. She does not specialize in animal communication, but my horse doesn't really care, right? He just tunes into energy, and
he's so cool, by the way. Sorry to interrupt. He's such a cool horse.
He's hilarious. So he'd been talking to my sister about this pain in his mouth and made it very clear that he was uncomfortable. And the vet came out and took a look, but didn't take the tooth out because it was a very complicated extraction. And he complained to my sister. Abby said she was like changing diapers. So she was with her little boy. So her brain was kind of in a very quiet place when he just popped in. And he said, they forgot to take my tooth. And he just started yelling at her. And she's like literally got two twin boys that she's trying to do their diaper. And she was like, is this a horse talking to me? And he said, it's T-Man. They forgot to take my tooth. So like we had to explain to him how long like it was going to be a process. As we got closer to the surgery date, at the barn, a lot of people were joking that T-Man's personality would change because T-Man is a big personality and he's very clear about what he likes and he doesn't like. And people were like, well, maybe he'll be more easygoing and relaxed once the tooth comes out. So he dialed my sister up and said, never mind, don't want the tooth out. And my sister was like, what is going on over there? And he goes, I don't want my personality to change. And she said, T-Man, I don't have time for this. I love you. I do. But like, do you know how many children I have? And so Abby lives in North Carolina, miles and hundreds of miles away from me. So she wasn't privy to these jokes, right? And she didn't even tell me that he had made that comment. It wasn't until after the surgery, she said, yeah, at one point he complained because he like didn't want his tooth out because he didn't want his personality to change. And she had dismissed that as such a random comment without knowing that around the barn, people had been making those jokes. So that's just a side story. But horses, man, they hear what we say. All animals do.
If I can speak up for them on their behalf, I've been saying this for years, especially now that I do this professionally and I do this all day long every day. Animals are so far ahead of us. They're waiting for us to catch up. Yep. They're so much more dialed into everything around us. They're just, I was just watching something on TikTok, one of these cute like reunion videos with dogs and their owners, that kind of stuff. And I was just thinking, God, I don't know if we really deserve them. They're just amazing, every one of them, but anyway, I digress.
So on that,
I feel like just real quick, I feel like because of the horses and animals in general being dialed in really well, I think it's just because they don't have the human distractions that we do. It might be a big part,
I would absolutely get on board and agree with that. I think also it's their nature.
Yeah.
They I think are born with certain senses that are just heightened. They might not have optical thumbs, but for example, a dog's sense of smell or a cat's sense of smell is so much stronger than ours that they're going to pick up on something way before we do. People say oftentimes, why does my dog go and sit at the front door 5 minutes before I show up, before I come home from work? And it doesn't matter what time of the day I come home or what I'm doing. How does my dog know? And I say it's because they're picking up on your energy field. You have come into their energy field. Even if you're driving your car and you're 5 minutes away, doesn't matter the distance. You could be going 10 miles an hour or 60 miles an hour. Once you enter their energy field, they know. They pick it up. People have tested their pets. They come home at 2 o'clock. They come home at 6 o'clock. It doesn't matter. 5 minutes before they come home, the dog's sitting at the door. So yeah, I agree with you. They don't have iPhones and, bills to pay and all that other kind of stuff. But I think even if we didn't have all of those things.
Beyond that, right, yes.
Would be far ahead of us.
What, and Jen, in your experience, do animals most want their humans to know? Like, is there a theme? And then I would love if you have any funny stories or anecdotes of like what an animal really wanted someone to know. We'd love to hear it.
I have a really good story. I mean, it's interesting. It had a very interesting result. But most often, animals want us, and I swear this is true, it's not my personal opinion, they want us to relax. And they want us to have fun. And they want us to stop worrying about stuff that doesn't matter. They want us to just let go and have fun. They don't care if you put them in a dress or not. They don't care. They don't care what, I mean, listen, some of them really enjoy the costumes and they enjoy the whatever, the silly Christmas cards and all that stuff. They just want to spend time with us. They don't want you to worry so much about all the stuff that you worry about. And they want you to relax and have fun and enjoy every day. Enjoy every day. You know, and that we tend to forget that. But that's how animals live. You know, they also, like I said, they don't have a mortgage to pay. But, you know, and we feed them regularly. And they're like my
Right.
dog. I swear to God, my dog doesn't suffer for half a second in his life. But, you know, that's really what they want. They want us to stop worrying about stuff that doesn't matter. But I do have a funny story. Ready? You want to hear this?
Yeah.
It's funny, not funny. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So this woman had hired me to speak to her dog. You know, and when I connect with an animal, listen, people can tell me whatever they want to tell me up front. I usually ask people not to say anything unless it's like a behavioral issue, Erin, like with a horse or something like that. Why is this horse blocking people off like crazy? Something like that. But I try not to get too much information ahead of time because I don't want it to cloud the session. I want to go in kind of clean, pure, and just sit down and like, all right, what do you want to talk about? So this woman hired me to speak to her dog, and we had a virtual session. And I do the work ahead of time. I write everything down, and then I go over it with the owner. And then if they have any secondary questions or any concerns that haven't been addressed, I go back and while we're on the phone or while we're Zooming or whatever it is, and I reconnect with the pet and clear up whatever it is they want to clear up. So at this point, I had already gone through everything with the pet, with the dog, and I was going through the results with the conversation with this owner. And I had to say to her, are you by yourself? And she said, yeah, there's nobody else here. Why? It's just me and my dog. And I said, well, because your dog has a problem with the guy you're dating.
No.
Oh, yeah. And I'm like, and Erin, you may or may not know this about me. Leo, you and I just met. I am not a nosy person. I'm not a gossip. I am inherently very respectful, like,
right.
I don't get involved in drama. I mind my own business and I don't mind your business. You know what I'm saying? So when this stuff comes through, and I don't know this woman, I don't know anything about her, but the dog was very adamant about, I said, I don't want to tell her this. She said, no, you have to tell her. So, you know, when you make a commitment to this work, you can't filter. You have to, if it doesn't make sense to you or if it's something uncomfortable, you have to say it. You're asking them what they want to say. They say it. You can't say, well, yeah, I'm not going to say that. You know, you can't be that filter. So I said, well, your dog, she's been living with it. She's been with this guy for 7 years and they were living together. And the dog basically said, he's not good enough for you. He's not carrying his weight. You're going to be financially supporting him forever. And by the way, your mother told you all this and you didn't want to hear it.
What?
And this woman, and I was like, please don't shoot the messenger. Please don't shoot the messenger. And here's the other thing too. Like when you're going through this in a session, you better be damn sure that you're right about it. You know what I mean? Like you have to be very confident in what you're saying because you're messing with people's lives. Yeah. You know, and I'm not that girl. Like, I don't want to do this, but I'm asking the dog, what do you want to tell her? And she's like, tell her boyfriend's a deadbeat and she should break up with him. So I told her.
I mean, Leo, that must happen to you too, even not with animals, right? Just spirit in general. When it comes through with truth, it comes through with truth, right?
Yeah, definitely. You know, sometimes things are uncomfortable and stuff like that. Myself personally, I don't like to do like future predictions or anything like that. I kind of have a boundary with that, but you're right, Jen, as far as like when it comes through, like everything's interpretive. And so if we think too much about it and we try to put our own spin on it because we're getting our heads involved with the message, then it can kind of, you know, taint it.
Yeah, I think it's really important oftentimes, Aaron, I wonder if, because I also, at the end of the reading, I always screenshot all the notes to my clients. And Aaron, I don't know if you notice, in particular with animals, I am very careful about the semantics of it. I'm very careful about, like, sometimes you'll see me scratch something out and then I go, wait, did I get that right? Was that me that got involved there? Were those my words, or what am I interpreting this the correct way? And sometimes you'll see us scribble stuff out on the notes, because I do, to your point, want to make sure that it's not me speaking or thinking or creating a story.
Yeah. Your notes are, for our listeners, and anyone who hasn't worked with Jen before, she does the reading in advance of the session, the live session with you. And she'll put a whole series of notes together for the entire conversation you've had with the animal is shared. And you did, T-Man, and this was hilarious. You wrote, he is very happy with you. And then you scratched very out. And then you wrote very back in.
Sure. They're not my words, they're his.
You're like, I better not screw this up. But as it turns out, I think T-Man said he was very happy with me. That was okay. In general. So Jen, do animal souls feel different than humans? Like, when you connect with an animal, what's the difference between an animal and a human or anything else?
For me, there's no difference whatsoever. There's no difference.
Living and deceased, the same?
No, it feels exactly the same to me if I'm in person, or if I'm doing a reading in person, or if I'm doing it virtually. Most of the time I work through photographs. Some clients will send me pictures, 2 or 3 pictures of whatever soul they want to talk to. And I just ask that the eyes are very crystal clear. So that's how I connect with their souls, is through their eyes. And Leo, everybody's process is different, right? Like, I'm sure your process is very different to mine and any other communicator that's out there. It doesn't mean one is right or wrong. It's just every individual has their own process.
No, right.
That's how I work. And, I don't know what it's like for you, but for me, there's no difference whatsoever. It feels exactly the same.
No, I don't. I mean, I don't consider myself necessarily an animal communicator, but when I'm doing readings, I do have pets come in. So I do get dogs, cats, snakes, birds have come in. I've talked to Aaron's horses and stuff like that, but I don't market myself as an animal communicator because that's not like my necessarily forte. Could I learn it? Yes. And build the confidence in it? Yes. But that's just not my focus right now.
Sure.
My horse is definitely plugged in with Leo, and you were spot on with them. You totally got it. Clifford, the baby horse, and Jen, you haven't talked to the baby horse, I don't think.
No.
He's got a big white tail that constantly needs to be washed. And one of the first things he said to Leo was about the tail. He's like, she is obsessed with my tail.
No, you know what it was? Aaron, do you remember if it was Clifford, the bangs? Do you remember the bangs?
Oh my God. This was hilarious. So his forelock had gotten really long, and I hadn't pulled it in a really long time. And that was actually, Leo, thank you for saying that. That was the first thing he said to Leo. And when Leo said his bangs, I just started laughing, because that's like, we call it a forelock, but that was how Leo was translating it, right?
That's how,
like, he can't see through his bangs. Okay, I gotta go.
The world of horses, just for anybody who's not in it or doesn't have experience with it, the equestrian world is like going to the moon. It's a totally different planet. There's a whole lingo. It's a different world, and it's really loony toony at times. But yeah, I would have called, if I didn't know any better, Leo, I would have called it bangs too.
Yeah, that's just how I saw it. Yeah.
But Leo was spot on. That was like the number one thing for Clifford. He couldn't see. He wanted them taken care of. Jen,
and then I think you cut them and then braided them the next day.
Oh my God, absolutely the next day. And Jen, I'm not going to lie to you, I didn't pull it. I did the scissors right across the top, which horrified everyone in the barn. And
no
I was
judgment
like,
here, girl. No judgment here.
And then I braided it, but it was delightful. And he's super cute. he's like stupid level cute because he's a perch quarter horse cross, so he's a chunky little muffin, and it's
He's got junk in the trunk.
oh he's got junk for days.
I love it.
Sorry to all our listeners that aren't horse people. This is probably like
just bear with us.
Jen, do you think that animals help us like grow and evolve? Do you think that they play a role in that?
Absolutely. I might start crying on this because it's a topic that's very near and dear to my heart. This is my take on animals personally. There's no coincidence. I don't believe there's any coincidences in life, period. But in particular with animals, I see each animal that comes into your life as intentional, and I see it as a gift. From wherever we all come from, I believe in God. I believe in source energy. Nobody else has to, that's fine. I believe each animal that comes into our life is sent as a gift from the universe and is sent to teach us lessons. Whether I know for sure, this my puppy who's sitting at my feet now, right? I said, oh, I'm not in the middle of the screen. Why? Because my 72-pound dog is taking over the space underneath my desk. And he's driven me crazy about 15 times already this morning, but I would throw myself in front of a bus for him. I love him. So I really, truly believe in one of the lessons that my dog Tucker, the one and only Tucker, has taught me. And it's a lesson that I know that I've needed my entire life is patience. I've needed to learn patience. And the only way my thick head is going to learn how to be patient in life is through unconditional love. So I have a son, and he taught me patience because you don't have a choice when you're a parent. You must learn patience. And the same thing with my dog. My dog was from the kill shut. He was from the ACC in Brooklyn, and he was on the youth list, and he had kennel cough and the whole 9 yards. When I got him, he was about 6 years old, and he hadn't really had any training, and he had been used for fighting, unbeknownst to me. And I had tendonitis in the back of both of my shoulders because he had never really been walked on a leash, and he's super powerful. And so I had to learn patience in training him and dealing with his behaviors. And now, of course, he's my ride or die, he's amazing. But I do believe animals are sent. Some of us have never experienced unconditional love, and animals give us that. Sometimes they teach us patience. Sometimes they teach us to overcome our fears. A lot of animals are carrying around trauma, and they overcome it. And if they can do it, it teaches us, hey, maybe you can do it too.
So true. Leo has cats, so he gets it, and he's also a parent, so
yes,
I think he gets it.
I gotta tell you, Leo, cats sometimes lie to me. I'm not gonna.
That's I can see that happening. Their personalities, sometimes, I feel are personalities from cats like different than dogs. Would you say?
Each individual is different.
But right, yeah, that's true.
Each soul is very different. So like we're all talking here. When I connect with an animal, it's like I'm talking to a human. It doesn't feel different to me. Human energy, animal energy doesn't differ. So
right.
I'm just like if I were talking to one of your cats,
right.
It would feel like I was talking to your roommate or whatever.
Right, the soul. Right.
It's just a soul is a soul is a soul. Cats can be. I don't want to say sneaky because that sounds negative.
Are they clever?
They're very clever. And
they're very clever.
Sometimes, like, for example, I help people locate lost pets. Right?
Right, okay.
One of the things that I do all over the country. I mean, I just had a woman out in India. She reached out to me, believe it or not. And her cat.
Wow.
Her cat, who was not fixed, was out there whooping Panub.
Oh boy.
He was out there. He's like, I want to go get looked. He had a little Daft Punk, playing in his ear. Anyway, but this cat did not want to be found. So he was giving me information about where he was, and then he would change the story. Okay. He would do this.
Yeah.
Cute.
Is Tucker moving, Jen?
yeah, he's shifting now. He's, God forbid he lays on just one dog bed. I
Right.
have him stacked up, so he's got two. And the one that's on the top here, one of my son's friends won at a carnival. It's a giant beaver, a huge beaver. So we call it Justin. We call it Justin Beaver, and it's now become Tucker's dog bed. But of course, it's on top of another dog.
Right.
Mhm.
I digress. Sorry. But where were we? God,
Cats and
The
dogs
lost,
and the difference.
yeah,
Oh, and the lost cat.
kept
yeah,
switching up the story,
yeah.
and I'm like, dude, what are you doing? Like, she's really concerned about you. And he's like, and I just kept changing up his story. I said, do you want to be found? He goes, no. I said, what do you mean? He goes,
Oh my gosh.
I'm like,
Did she find it?
I said, will you please, when you're done, will you just go back? Because she's really concerned about you. And that's another thing people say oftentimes. Can you just tell them to go home? Can you just tell them to go home? Listen, if I could just tell the animals to go home and they would, all three of us, we would be having this conversation on my private island.
Right?
Like,
Yeah. So it doesn't work like that, huh?
doesn't always. I mean, I always tell them, but whether or not they do it, it's up to them.
So talk to us a little bit about lost pet recovery then. Okay. So sometimes you can't just tell them to go home. What other kinds of conversations happen when you're recovering a lost pet?
So the first thing I try to do, and the length of time that the pet has been missing is irrelevant. It doesn't matter. It's not easier if they were lost within the past 24 hours or if it's been 3 months. It's all the same. But one of the first things that I try to decipher is whether or not that pet is still alive. And if the answer is yes, then the next question is, are you injured? Are you stuck? Are you trapped? Did you fall in a ditch? Did you get hit by a car, God forbid? Did somebody pick you up? Have you been picked up by anybody? Did you get into a scuffle with a coyote? Or, there's a lot of different questions. And I do my best I always ask my clients, give me the pictures of the animal, give me the address from which they were lost, and don't tell me anything else. And I sit down with my notebook, I write down as much as I possibly can about the state of the animal. Are they nervous? Are they calm? Are they frightened? Are they happy? Some of them are like, woohoo, I'm gone, what are you doing? What was it that triggered the escape? Or, whatever, the flight. I try to get a picture of what they're looking at. Leo, I'm sure you can attest to this, where you get visuals, you get pictures in your mind. Show me what you're looking at. What is it that you want me to see? That can give me an idea as to what it is, what type of environment. Then I try to get as much as I can. What are you looking at? And then I go through landmarks. Okay, are you in a residential area? Are you in a commercial area? Now, a dog doesn't know the difference between residential and commercial. I'm appealing to their higher self.
Got it.
In the interest of the greatest good of everyone involved. So then I start going through, okay, is it congested? Are you near a major road? Are you near an open area? Are there trees? Is it deserted? Is it, et cetera? Go through the whole thing. Then I start looking for landmarks. Okay, can you see houses? Can you see cars? Are you near a post office, fire station, police station, school? Can you hear children? Can you hear ambulances? Are you near a medical center? So I start going through the whole thing. And then when I get as much information as I possibly can, then I take the address from which the pet was lost. I put all the notes away. I don't look at them. And then I go on Google Earth and I punch in the address and I pull it up and I start to get drawn to specific areas. And and I'm screenshotting stuff as I go and zooming in, screenshotting, zooming in, screenshotting, zooming. And then I go back, once I've done all that and I feel confident or comfortable with what I'm looking at, then I go back to the notes. And if what I've circled is in alignment with what I've written down, I say, are you north of the home? Are you south? Are you east, west, whatever? If If those two things back each other up, then I know I'm on the right track. If they don't, then I got to start over again. It doesn't usually happen. But that's the process. And then I try to go through all of that with the owners.
So you have to be a real detective.
Yeah. You really do. And you have to know the questions to ask. Another thing, you have to know the questions to ask. And oftentimes, I'm not getting enough specific. I'm like, geez, why am I not getting more? Then I start saying, okay, what numbers are important? And I go from 0 to 9. What letters are important? Now, I don't know, and I'll try to get numbers and letters. I don't know if those are part of a zip code. I don't know if it's a house number. I don't know if it's a street name or if the letters are part of a town name. I don't know if it's part of a license plate. I don't know what the importance is connected to those things, but I try to get numbers. I try to get letters, any kind of clue I can possibly get to get the owner either can like where that pet is or close so that they can find them themselves. You know, like if I can get them into the realm, you know. I have a really interesting story about that too. I'm yattering on forever here. I don't want to bogart this whole podcast.
I think we would be open to an interesting Jen story. Right, Leo?
Want to hear one?
Yeah. Sure.
You're good? Okay.
Go
so
ahead.
I had this guy. I love the story. I love the story because it's like, don't give up. Don't give up. And I have my own podcast, and I'm actually going to be talking about this story as well because the theme of the podcast is never give up. So this gentleman reached out to me. He lives in New Jersey. I didn't know this at the time, but literally like at the top of the hill in the middle of nowhere. Of course.
Of course.
Right? And his cat went missing. A little fluffy gray cat. And he was devastated. He reached out and he said, Jen, can you help me find my cat? I mean, when I say the middle of nowhere, there were neighbors. You could see the neighbor there. You could see the neighbor. I don't remember what the time was, but kind of in the middle of nowhere. So yes, of course, give me the pictures. I'll do my thing. And I kept saying to him, he was totally convinced that the cat had gone, let's just call it west. It's like, I really feel that the cat went over there. And I kept saying, no, the cat went to the right, went east. I'm telling you, I keep getting east. I'm not God. It's not a perfect science, but I keep getting east. And I keep getting blue house. And there's an older woman with gray hair and this, that, and the other, blah, 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 blah. Right? So did what I could do. And I have to say, this gentleman, Robert, was very, very proactive. He had signs made up, those lawn signs. He had them all over the town, all over every intersection. He had, stuff stapled on the lamp posts, and he was actively out there looking every day for his cat. But it's kind of like a needle in a haystack. You know what I mean? I was like, how am I going to find this cat? And of course, there are wild animals, there are predators, there's hawks, there's coyotes, there's whatever. So anyway, I kept saying, go this way. He's like, no, I swear it's that way. I'm like, all right, well, then what are you asking me for? Okay, so anyway, he was lovely, though. And we worked together, and then he did all of his stuff. And 2 or 3 weeks later, he reached out to me again, and he said, has anything changed? So I reconnected with the cat. The cat was alive. And I kept saying, there's this blue house. An older woman, and she's got like gray hair, and he's going, I don't know what house you're talking about. I don't know what house you're talking about. I'm like, I don't know what house I'm talking about either. I keep seeing this blue house, this older woman. And I kept saying, go in the same direction. So sure enough, 2 months later, I get a screenshot and a photograph from him. And he said, Jen, I found my cat. I got my cat back. I got my cat back. I got my cat back. I said, oh my God, get it. He said there was an old woman in a blue house over to the east.
No.
Yeah, she's one town over. And she found my
funny.
cat. And I was like, oh.
So she took it in?
Yeah, but she hadn't, at the time, she hadn't taken the cat in. It was almost foreshadowing. Because the cat had only come to her about 2 days before.
Gotcha.
We had been looking for months, and the universe kept showing me this blue house with an old white-haired woman. And I was like, I don't know who the heck this is. I don't know why I keep talking about this, but that's what's coming in. And sure enough, that's who found the cat for him. Pop him up.
That's
How
awesome.
cool is that? How cool is that? The universe works in crazy ways. I was so happy. I was jumping up and down. My son was looking at me. He's like, Mommy, what's that? Like, she's got the cat. He's got the cat.
I'm so glad he found his cat, because I think every human who has an animal knows that pain of like separation, unplanned.
One of the worst things ever is not knowing where your child is or not knowing where your pet is. One of the worst things ever.
Jen, can animals see spirits, ghosts, angels?
Yep. Yep. Absolutely. You ever see your cat? Leah, you ever see your cat? Well, you're a medium, so you've probably seen them too.
I mean, I know my sister in spirit plays with the cat and everything like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
People will say, why does my cat just sit there and stare at the wall and go like this? Like there's something there, but there's nothing there. I'm like, no, that's because there's something there. It's a spirit.
Yeah.
And just because the spirit's in your house doesn't mean that it's a negative spirit.
Right, exactly. Right.
No?
I do have a question also before we finish up down the list towards the end, but I recently had to go through this and put down one of our cats recently last week. So can you talk a little bit about or just any advice for owners of pets when they reach this point with their pets? What sort of advice can you give the owners? And then what sort of, I guess, peace of mind can you give us about maybe what the animal might be going through and how they might be thinking as they're passing, as we're with them and beyond?
Oh, yeah. Leah, honestly, I just had this conversation yesterday. It was at my cousin's house. She has a little mini poodle who's very sick. He's got 3 out of 4 leaky valves in his heart, and his heart keeps moving. Yeah, and he's young. I mean, he's 13. 13 for a little mini poodle is like middle aged. So I'll give you this. I can answer this speaking as I spoke to her, and I am faced with a lot of time. I do get a lot of calls. A lot of clients are facing end of life decisions with their pets, and they want to know, which I think is such a beautiful gift, to give your animal the opportunity to weigh in on the decision. And oftentimes they're okay. Oftentimes, I'm not speaking for every pet. So my cousin's dog has fluid filling up in his lungs and fluid filling up in his heart, and to look at him, you'd never know. He looks perfectly healthy. But this is what I said to her. I said, listen, he's not going to recover from this. And she's not sure about how long to wait. And I said this to her. I said, listen, one of the greatest gifts that we can give our pets is the gift of passing with dignity and the gift of a peaceful goodbye. And I never tell people what to do. I never give you're facing that decision. It has to come from you. You have to know. And oftentimes people say, my cat looked at me or my dog looked at me and I knew it was time. I asked them to tell me when it's time, and they looked at me and they gave me the look. So I always tell people, go with that. But I said to her, listen, he's on borrowed time at this point. Pick a day and make the decision that on whatever day it is that it's going to be. Let's just say it's going to be a week from now. Take the time in between now and then and say out loud to your pets everything that you want to say to them. Say out loud, I love you. Thank you for being patient with me. Thank you for forgiving me for the mistakes that I've made. Thank you for giving me the lessons and teaching me the lessons that I've needed. Thank you for loving me unconditionally. Thank you for your kindness and all the love and the joy that you've given me. Say it out loud, because the last thing you want is, there are 2 things you don't want when you're putting a pet down. You don't want your last moments to be totally panicked, traumatizing. My God, my cat is spitting up blood. It's 3 a.m. He can't breathe, and I have to race off to the vet. And that's how everybody says goodbye. That's horrible. You don't want that. The other thing you don't want is regrets. I wish I had said this to my pet. I wish I had said thank you to my pet. I wish I had said, I'm so grateful to you for just being in my life. Thank you for getting me through that hard time, getting me through my divorce, getting me through college, helping me out of my depression. Look who's here.
Tucker.
Speaking of thank you, come
Oh, stop it.
I see. You know why? Because I say this stuff to him every day. I say to him, Tucker, I don't know what I would do without you. I love you. Mwah. I thank you so much for being who you are. This dog drives me nuts.
Wow.
But I say thank you. I say all of this every single day to him because I don't know. God forbid, I don't know when my number's up or his.
Yeah. I can't with that face.
I know.
can't.
I know. Most spoiled dog on the planet. Look at him.
Oh my God.
He's a good boy. But those are the things. And I would say pick a day tragedy happens or before trauma happens. Say goodbye with peace and dignity and love. And in the time in between, like now, and let's say it's a week from now that God forbid you have to say goodbye to your pet, celebrate everything that you've celebrated about that pet in your life and make it the best week ever. Give them all the food that they want. If they want a pup cup twice a day, give them a pup cup twice a day. You know what I mean? If they love running around in the field, let them run around in the field. If you just want to take a day off from work and cuddle with your dog, take a day off and cuddle with your dog. Do those things. Because you don't want to look back at the time that the last bit of time that you have with that soul and think about it in a negative way. Most of the time, they're okay with it. Very often I would say 80% of the time, 85% of the time, I hear from animals, I'm okay, I don't fear death. I'm waiting for my owner to be okay with my leaving. That's what I hear more often than not.
Last week, before we had to put down our cat, my daughter decided, because he couldn't eat, he couldn't keep anything down, she had some chocolate peanut butter ice cream in the freezer, and she gave him a spoonful of that, and he loved it.
Yeah. I mean, listen, give him the whole tub. What the heck?
Right?
My dog Elvis was a mini poodle. That dog would have done anything for pork products. Anything. On his last day, I made him a pork chop. Here, eat the whole thing. What do I care? We're saying goodbye later tonight. Eat the pork chop. I chased him with his little squeaky hot dog. Mom took him for a 3-hour car ride because he loved the car so much. You know? Just celebrate them and say goodbye with peace and dignity. It's the most horrible thing to have to say goodbye to a pet. But when you know that, listen, okay, this big gorilla here, I know that nobody on this planet is going to take better care of this dog than me. But I also know, like I said before, I believe in God. I know that when he crosses over, this dog is going to be in the best hands possible. He's going to be in God's hand. That's where he came from, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So the only other one I'm going to let take care of him is God. Take care of his soul.
Do you think it helps? I don't want to use the word, I'm going to use the word pray, but I'm going to use it absent a religious affiliation. So with that, Tia, do you think it helps if people pray for their animals to cross over and go back to spirit? Do you think those prayers are heard?
Oh, yeah. I think very often it's not just for us. What you're saying is, please make sure this soul that I love so much is safe and cared for. And you're sending that soul off with positive energy and light.
Yeah.
And that's all you can ever really ask for. I hope somebody's doing it for me. I know my mom prays for me every day. I'll take it. Same with them.
Yeah. All right, Jen, before we let you go, we want to end on a heartwarming note. So what's the funniest thing an animal has said to you?
Oh, my God. Well, I did tell this story in my sister's podcast, but it sticks with me to this day about the rooster.
Yeah.
Oh, please tell us the rooster story. Yes.
Okay, I'll make it short because I know I'm yapping on way too much. But I was working on a horse, and it was a very heavy session. And so I was at a barn down in Tennessee, and my sister was there, and I decided to just take a breather, just take a mental breather, and stepped outside the barn, and there was a huge chicken coop, and there was this saucy rooster, that was, just screaming at me. As soon as I walked out the door, this rooster was like screaming at me. My sister came, and I looked at him, and she goes, "That rooster's talking." I said, "Yeah." And there was this sassy little caramel-colored fluffy top hen that was walking away. And the rooster looked at me and he said, "That's my woman." And I was like, "Sorry, what?" I mean, the comic relief that we needed, but I said, "Come again?" And he said, "That's my woman." And she literally was sashaying like "Shake What Your Mama Gave Ya." If a hen can do that, I swear, I'm not making this up. My sister's a witness, and she said, she said,
how could you come up with that, right?
honest, I say this all the time. First of all, I don't lie about anything.
Right.
It's very disrespectful. I'm just an honest, probably to a fault. But two, the stuff that they say is so much funnier than anything I could ever come up with. I'm not that clever. I'm not that funny. You know what I mean? The stuff that they say is ridiculous.
Amazing. Amazing, amazing. Jen, how can people find you? So if people want to work with you, how can they find you? Where are you on social? Where are you on the internet?
Yep. Okay. So easiest way is to go to my website, jenniferluciana.com. I'm also on Instagram and TikTok, and my tag is @TheRealJenniferLuciana. I'm also part of an online directory for pet services. It's called petworks.com. And how else can you find me? Did I cover everything? TikTok, Instagram, on Facebook as Jennifer Luciana. And I think if I had anything more, I would be exhausted.
We'll get all of it in the show notes for our listeners so they can find their way to you.
Thank
Leo,
you.
Jen, anything else before we wrap up?
I don't think so, but it was a pleasure, Jen. Thanks for sharing all your stories.
Leo and Aaron, listen. Aaron, you know how much I adore you. Leo, it is such a pleasure to meet you. I've heard so many wonderful things about you.
Thank you.
I can't wait to talk to you on an individual.
Yeah, I would love to connect. Yeah.
I think it would be really cool. And I would just want to thank both of you for offering me this opportunity to come and talk about my work. I really, really love it. And I love the work that you're both doing. And I think it's really inspiring. I wish I could say hi to Abby as well. I'm sure you'll give her a big hug from me. And I just really appreciate you guys giving me the opportunity.
We love it. We had so much fun. All right. With that rooster energy, off we go. Bye, guys. Have a good day.
Good day. Thanks. See you later.
Thank you for listening to Mystery of the Soul. Be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. If you have a question, topic suggestion, or just want to say hi, we'd love to hear from you. You can visit our website at mysteryofthesoul.com, reach us on Instagram, or email us at mysteryofthesoulpodcast@gmail.com. If you're interested in booking a session with Leo, you can contact us at Mystery of the Soul or visit Leo's website directly at leomediummccarthy.net.